it's in the plant category, not as much as the algae category, but there's only 2 or 3 species of duckweed in Florida, and it's a small plant. It tends to be about a millimeter or 2, maybe even 3 in size. It's a very small rooted plant that floats on the water. This time of year in particular, beginning of November, October, and September are times when duckweed tends to explode here. I mean, it can double every week on a pond. So if you go from 2 square feet to 4 square feet, that's not too bad. But if you go from 100 square feet to 200 square feet in a week, and then 200 square feet to 400 square feet in a week, all of a sudden your pond is covered with duckweed. I've seen it come and go. I've talked to the fishery biologist and the plant biologist, and I don't know why it comes and goes. We know that something brings the duckweed into your pond, probably is a duck, but
I understand that it comes on the feet of herons and ducks.
That's exactly what it comes in. It'll cling to the feet, it'll cling to the feathers, and you'll get 4 teeny little duckweeds in your pond, and it starts multiplying. Algae is different in the sense that algae is just here. Like I said, 8,000 species in Florida. You've got dozens of species of algae in your pond all the time. If the algae is well behaved and stays under the water, nobody cares. If the algae starts multiplying and floating up to the surface and creating these mats that cover the lake, humans just don't like it. The ducks don't mind it, the fish don't mind too much, but humans do not like algae very much. And it affects our sense of aesthetics. Then we associate algae production with bad lakes. And it's not necessarily a bad lake, it's just a super highly nutrient lake. So they're just different species, but they're both irritating to most people.
Hi, Russ. Hey, I have 2 questions. One, is there an ordinance in Sarasota County that requires landscape maintenance contractors not to blow grass clippings into the street? And I think there is. I think there's something.
You know the answer to that question. There is. That answer is yes. They're not supposed to blow grass clippings either into the pond or into the stormwater drain.
Right. So in other words, if you folks see your landscape maintenance folks doing that, tell them.
Right.
And second question is really quick. In these ponds, would it be useful to put in any kind of aeration, whether it be an ornamental fountain to help the process catalyze along, so you're not creating, you got all these microbes in there. I'm just thinking of creating like an anaerobic situation when it starts to eat all that muck, it's consuming all that. Are they anaerobic or aerobic?
That's a really good question. A lot of the microbes that do best at decomposing muck at the bottom of the lake are right at the edge of aerobic and anaerobic, oxygenated and non-oxygenated, where there's oxygen in the water or there's no oxygen in the water. They live right at that edge. Because typically as you go down in the lake, the oxygen level goes down. And the oxygen level also changes from morning to night. In a typical lake around here, oxygen level at 8 o'clock in the morning might be around 3 or 4, maybe 5. By the time we have a nice sunny day, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that oxygen level is at 9 to 12. And we're talking about 9 to 12 parts per million of oxygen in the water. So it fluctuates day to night, high during the day, low at night. It also fluctuates high at the surface and low at the bottom. So an aerator in particular is extremely good for putting lots more oxygen in the water. It's good because the oxygen that you and I are breathing right now is about 270,000 parts per million, whereas the oxygen in the water is about 10. So the oxygen in the atmosphere touches the water and transfers into the water. So what the aerator does is it creates bubbles, turns the water over so it creates a current. So there's more low oxygen water coming up from the bottom, touching the atmosphere, getting oxygen, going back down to the bottom and circulating around. Not those little bubbles that do it. And aerators, the bubblers, probably create 25, 35 times more oxygen in the water than fountains. Fountains are pretty. I love fountains, but fountains are architectural features that bring an attractive beauty to to your pond if you like that. So I look at the difference between an aerator bubbler is a biological tool to oxygenate your lake. A fountain is an architectural tool to bring a certain aesthetic to your pond. So oftentimes we will combine aerators and microbial treatments as a 1-2 punch to really help reduce algae. And it has also worked very well. That's a great question.
I've got a couple more here. I'll get back to John.
We have a county-owned pond adjacent to the Southgate Community Association building, and it receives water from Tuttle, so we got all the antifreeze and the oil and all that stuff from the busy road. Does the county provide microbial service, and if not, can you recommend some grant sources where we could look to come up with not only microbial approaches, but also landscaping for a pond that's not ours?
Well, it's tough to get a grant for something that's not yours.
Yeah.
But apart from that administrative issue, there's always grants around. As the economy is improving, the grants are improving. The Love Your Lake grant that Nathan mentioned earlier is one that's available right now. And they probably would be open to a microbial landscaping approach to any pond, as long as you had permission from the pond owner to do whatever we were planning on doing. So I'm unaware of the county policy on what they do.
Does the county still have the NEST program, which is the Neighborhood Environmental Stewardship something?
Right,
That would help with something like that?
Right. What Allison is is referring to is the county-sponsored program called NEST, Neighborhood Environmental Stewardship Team. And NEST is administrated by an environmentalist who helps any neighborhood with environmental programs. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pond program, but they do an awful lot of pond program endeavors. And that would be a great, call it the county, 861-5000 number, ask for Rob Wright at the NEST program, and he would be able to give you some ideas on what type of programs are available. And they could dovetail that with the Love Your Lake grant is sponsored by the Florida Lake Management Society. And obviously because we manage lakes, we belong to that professional group. And they just have private money that is available for any type of grant program that you're interested in doing around your lake.
Well, I was just going to suggest calling the volunteer department of the county, and they are looking for groups to do projects around their property.
Okay.
I just want to say, in Gulfgate, it's an older community. I don't know if it's the oldest one in Sarasota County or not, but ownership is the key. Now, in Gulfgate, it is not demandatory to be a member of the homeowners association. If there was, there would be more money available. That is one of the keys. The laws have got to be changed in the state of Florida so that if you have a pond and it's owned by the people around the pond, that's the way it is with Crescent Lake, where I would live, which is a stormwater pond. And I fought the county on this, and you can't win. So I transferred my responsibilities to somebody else because I wasn't a permanent resident here all year round because I vacationed up north. So I'm a hybrid. Well, right now, there's a golf course at Gulfgate, and they want to put in a gated community, and it's going to just compound problems because here you're using the sewer facilities of a non-old community. So the laws need to be changed, and that's part of CONA's responsibility, is to make people educated so they know that if you want to get the money, you've got to have all the homeowners in the community part of the association. So that can be done with the state laws in Tallahassee with the governor. Charlie Crist was helpful at one time when he was the governor of Florida. I came to this area in 1993. My wife's folks were here before that and passed away, but she was the one that educated. And so I think that's one of the keys you have to do in your studies is to find out about the ownership history of that particular area and identify it, what it has to be, whether all the homeowners in the gated communities, all the homeowners have to belong to the association, or you can put a lien on the property and force them to join. And the politicians, and when you go and vote, you need to find and ask the questions of the politicians. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
I was just going to answer your question. Yes, there are such thing as the property owner's lot line goes to the center of a pond, and that's called riparian rights. And each one of the homeowners associations is responsible for maintenance of the pond. You're not going to see that ever again in Sarasota County, or I don't think any of the counties, because what happens when you have that situation, those ponds don't get maintained, and you have the situation that she's talking about. I'm very familiar with Gulfgate. I'm also a registered surveyor, and we've done a number of surveys, and I've also represented some of the homeowners there where they have drainage problems. And part of the problem, I was kind of interested tonight to hear that the homeowners association isn't active and doesn't control that, because that's the drainage swales and everything else in Gulfgate have been they've been filled up, and you have drainage problems in there because of Gulfgate was built in 1960, so you're never going to see anything like that again.
What do you do when you have critters eating the plants you're putting, like the lilies and water lilies and things?
Most of the time you plant more plants.
Some of the ponds near the lake that I'm on has very large turtles and a large turtle population. We've got 3 different species of turtles: soft shell, red ear, and another one like cooter, I think is, or cooter. And they come and go as they please. Now, the lake that I'm talking about is a spring-fed lake that vents to the bay. Would that have special conditions that need to be taken into consideration?
The only special condition in that situation would be that turtles, eat a lot of plants, and particularly newly planted plants. So it's difficult to have a small planting project where there are lots of turtles, because the turtles will come from all over and just eat most of the plants. So once the plants are in, there's usually not a problem. So sometimes we've had to fence plants in to keep the critters out. But it's difficulty when there are a lot of critters, because turtles in particular are a problem.
Are there any more questions?
Players in the game.
Thank you. It was really an interesting discussion, and I hope that if you would give some information about your company, please.
The company is called Beautiful Ponds. We have a lot of information on the website, beautifulponds.com. A lot of educational material there, so we'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any about anything to do with ponds.
Also, CONA puts the video of these meetings up on our website. It's CONASarasota.org, and I also create links that are related to the topic, so that once it gets posted onto the CONA site, there'll also be additional links, and a link to Beautiful Ponds will be one of them, and hopefully there will be a video available that you can watch there. Thank you very much for coming.